After recently experiencing a bunch of EV SUVs, I'm finally getting a chance to drive a sleek electric Grand Touring sedan. Sometimes it seems like beautiful automotive design is forced to take a backseat to practicality. But fortunately, Audi is bucking that trend with this beautiful E-Tron GT. It joins an elite club of high-end EV sedans like the Tesla Model S, Lucid Air, and its corporate brother, the Porsche Taycan. More about those cars later. Let's start with what is possibly the E-Tron GT's best attribute of all, and that, of course, is its styling. In my opinion, this is one of the best-looking EVs currently on the road, with a low, sleek, long look that still manages to be practical for 4 people. And we were lucky enough to get the rip-roaring RS edition. The Audi RS e-tron GT is appearing courtesy of our friends over at automotiveaddicts.com. And publisher Malcolm Hogan has taken the wheel. And Malcolm, I know you really love this car, but I also know there were a couple things that you wish were maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm a tall, bigger guy. Getting in and out of this thing is a pain. Pretty much like a sports car. I mean, I guess you could say it is a sports car, but getting in and out, the ingress and egress is kind of difficult with this 8-pillar. It's very sloped, low to the ground. But, if that's one of my major complaints, then, I think everything else kind of fits together, and, I think it's a pretty good car.
Yeah, now let's talk about some of the positives. I know one of the things that you were really enthralled with is the muscle in this car.
Yeah, so funny enough, they actually don't have any boost buttons or anything. Yeah. It's just pretty much, go to a stop, put it in dynamic mode, lay on the brake pedal and throttle, let go of the brake, and you're off. 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds. It's pretty quick. It does have funny enough, it does have a rear transmission, a 2-speed transmission for the rear axle only. Sometimes you can feel that. I think it's the computer decides on where it wants to shift that transmission. But a lot of guys who have the Porsche Taycan will, remember the same thing because it's the same drivetrain. Basically, similar vehicle, same platform and everything, same motors and all that stuff. But I think the Audi is a little more comfy on the luxury side of things.
Yeah, one of the things I was really curious to see is how the ride would be in comfort mode. I knew it was going to be razor sharp and dynamic, but in comfort, I was impressed how plush it really was.
Yeah, it rides really good. The adaptive dampers do very well. The air suspension makes very small adjustments. Once you get up to highway interstate speeds, it does lower itself, for even a more hunkered down ride. But it rides really, really good. I'm very impressed by that quality. You do have somewhat of an exotic appeal as far as the ride goes, but overall you do have that luxurious, supple smoothness when in comfort mode.
Yeah, I would say that of all the EVs that I've driven, this is probably the most planted I've experienced to date.
Oh yeah, for a 4-door car, it's very well planted.
Yeah, and in terms of, you were talking about that boost mode, outside of getting a ride in a Plaid 0 to 60, this has got more kick than anything I've experienced EV-wise, I would say as well.
Yeah, up there. It's right there with it. Of course, the Plaid, nothing can touch the Plaid. I mean, that's just another dimension altogether. But yeah, this one is pretty quick. It kind of takes your breath away just a little bit.
It does. So Malcolm, one thing that I did notice that I wasn't a big fan of, and that was the regen on the car. I did find a way to keep the regen constant by going deep into the settings. You could go into a manual mode, but natively it doesn't really support one-pedal driving.
Yeah, that's one unfortunate thing. There is no true one-pedal driving for this EV, but there is a way of turning the aggressiveness as far as the regen up a little bit with the steering wheel paddles, but even that's still very soft.
Yeah, and I don't know what you thought about the paddle regen, but we've both had multiple EVs with paddle regen, and I didn't feel as though this one had nearly the flexibility of some of the others that we've experienced.
Yeah, it doesn't, unfortunately. I think Kia Hyundai Genesis has this beat as far as the multiple levels of regen and setting the regen.
Well, now you brought up Kia. I'm curious to hear your direct comparison to the EV6 GT that we had, which of course is basically half the price of this one. How did you feel the two compared?
Yeah, so the Kia, the EV6, it felt definitely smaller. You know, this is a very wide vehicle. You feel more of a connected presence to the road in this vehicle. It's more dynamic. You know, in the Kia, a little higher up, I think it's actually classified as an SUV because of, you know, how high it is. It was never near as connected as this car. This car, you know, your money is going to the driving dynamics, you know, performance you get out of this. You're getting real near exotic levels of performance.
Of course, one of the reasons people are going to go ahead and choose the RS trim is for that incredible 637 horsepower. The torque is equally blistering at 612 pound-feet. Audi also knows how to dial back the power when you need more efficiency with its Quattro all-wheel drive system. It has an efficiency mode that sends most of the power to the front wheels, whereas in the other drive modes, the all-wheel drive system is spooled up all of the time. Like many other recent EVs, Audi has decided to engineer in some fake motor noises. Appropriately enough, Audi calls it the E-Tron sports sound. Let's give it a listen. There's no getting around the fact that the E-Tron GT is an expensive car. The base price is $104,000. I gotta say, as somebody that has bought a taller SUV-like vehicle, I have a Mustang Mach-E, I really miss a low-slung car like this. I found the ride to be firm, but it hasn't beaten me up, and taking the corners in this thing, oh, it's wonderful. The heads-up display, by the way, in the Audi is very solid. It tells me what I need to know. It gives me the speed limit in the zone that I'm in and my speed as a default. But then, of course, as you would expect, it does show you other things such as adaptive cruise control when you've got that turned on. And speaking of adaptive cruise control, it does work as expected. I had an opportunity to use it earlier in the day out on the highway. But I will say this, it did give up on the turns a little easier than I would have guessed. I was coming around a fairly sharp interstate turn and the Audi turned control back over to me. So I don't know if that was an isolated incident or if it is specifically programmed to advise the driver to take back control on sharper interstate turns. Now, this is not a hands-free system. It will prompt you to put your hands back on the wheel, but it also does have lane keeping assist. Now, one area where I do have to ding the E-Tron GT is the center console. I like the look of it. It has good cup holders. It has a nice cubby for little things. In this case, I'm using it for my lavalier mic holder. But where it falls apart is the main storage area. It's very small, number one. Number two, it's canted so far back, it's not natural to get to. But for the biggest problem of all is larger phones won't fit. I can put my Samsung in, but I can't get it closed. It's too tall. Now, there is a slot with a wireless charger that's meant to go sideways. So the idea is you put it down and you go in sideways. But this particular phone, which is an S22 Ultra, is too large with the case on to fit in that cubby hole. I tried and I tried and I could make it fit. I could get it to fit when I took the phone out of its case. But that really, in a 150,000 plus car, that's just not acceptable. And by the way, if you're somebody that has a foldable phone, you know, the new ones that turn into tablets, I would imagine the problem would be even worse. Back to the more practical aspects of the E-Tron GT. It has a decent sized front trunk while the rear trunk is 9.2 cubic feet. It should be enough for a weekend getaway. But if you need more storage space, the rear seats also flip down. Now, I did spend some time in the back seat of this car, and I found this to be a very comfortable back seat. I had no problems with it. Now, in my case, though, I'm 5'8", so somebody say that's 6 feet or taller, they might find it a little cramped back here. But for people under 6 feet tall, assuming the person in front is also under 6 feet tall, I think it's probably a fine 4-passenger vehicle. What would you say this car's strongest competition is?
So besides being the Porsche Taycan, which this is heavily based on, I go to something like the Lucid Air. Some of the higher Lucid Air trims this competes very well with. Although the Lucid Air is quite a bit bigger on the inside, maybe a little bit more luxurious. But this, I think you're getting a more connected to the road feeling.
Now, when you talk about the Lucid Air, I do think one place where this really falls short is range, because the top trim, Lucid Air actually tops 500 miles per charge. And going from memory, I believe the EPA rates this at 232 miles.
That is correct. Yeah, 232, 238, something around there. I did notice on a full charge, it did give me an estimate of 252 miles for the range.
I have seen other journalists report as much as 270 or even more. So the good news is, at least, it looks as though this car over-delivers on its EPA range.
Yeah, that's a good thing. With something I'm starting to notice about a lot of EVs, manufacturers are kind of underrating their estimates, the range estimates. Even in this one, do a full charge and I see a higher number than advertised. But I think that's might be a good thing. People eventually learn those patterns and actually how to extend their range, driving a little bit softer. All that.
So, another thing that really impresses me on the spec sheet, although I wasn't able to personally experience it, is how fast this car will charge.
Yeah, it's one of the faster charging cars on the market, in comparison. I hate to keep on mentioning the Kia, Hyundai, Genesis family, but, about 20-minute charge from 10% to 80%, which is pretty good using that 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. So that's a benefit of this car. I've actually seen quite a few Taycans and this at Electrify America stations using the 350 kilowatt charger, and they only stopped for maybe 15 minutes and they were off.
The E-Tron GT is among the fastest charging EVs available. It can hit a peak of up to 270 kilowatts. Although I didn't come anywhere close to that, this particular charger peaks at 100, and the available 350 kilowatt charger at this particular EVgo wasn't working. So summing it all up, great handling, acceleration, styling, and enough practicality to use it as a daily driver makes the RS E-Tron GT a compelling package for those that still prefer a grand touring experience. And if you've enjoyed this episode of EV Rider, please give it a like and subscribe so I can bring you more adventures in EV motoring. And if you happen to be in the greater Jacksonville, Florida area and you've got a cool EV that I haven't reviewed yet, hey, please give me a shout, drop me a comment so I can get in touch with you and check out your EV. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.